Yeah, yeah. So if you didn't hear the run up to this thing, Joe is not going to be joining for us. If you've been following the Discord, Joe has been out sick, unfortunately, this past week. He did pass a message in the channel here. He said, "Tell everyone I say hello, and I'm getting better indeed." He's just not 100% yet. So, if you're listening to this, do me a favor, send Joe a DM, tell him you're thinking about him, and just make certain that he knows the Rocket Pool community is pulling for him in a speedy and swift recovery here, and we're all looking for the day that Joe's going to be back in the channels with us and back on the call here. But definitely reach out to him. He's at least back to the land of the living, and tell him you miss him. I guess, Mav, there were a couple of things that we were expecting this week, and we don't know if Joe's going to be able to pull them together fast enough. But we were waiting for an update on the smart node 1.7.1. Did you get a sense from the stand up today if we think those are still going to ship this week, or are they going to push into next week?
So from the previous stand up, Joe was on briefly, but I don't think we didn't want to kind of push anything. And when it comes to releasing quite an important update, you really want to be kind of on top of your game, both to make sure everything runs okay, but if there are any potential issues, to be able to kind of catch them and deal with them, which obviously if you're kind of out sick, not the best. So from the sounds of things, we will be postponing that. But unfortunate coming off the back of already one postponement to align with, I think it was one or two of the client teams pushing out updates. But yeah, all going well. We should be on track for next week. As I understand it, the bulk of the work has already been done. So it's just a matter of getting that update out.
Yeah, and I'll also mention to everyone that you can always manually update the image of any of your clients just using the TUI, the terminal user interface. It's very easy. I don't think I've seen any large releases that were urgent or strongly suggested by any of the client teams. It looks like many of the releases that we've been waiting for have just been enhancements or program efficiencies. I know that Nimbus is going to be offering a split client mode, but it's kind of an enhancement that would allow those that are using Nimbus to be able to use such things as the rescue node, or to be able to have local backup nodes or fallback nodes, I should say. But nothing has been all that impending. I'm quite positive that if there was an urgent client release, you'd see it posted in there, and we would just manually provide the new Docker image to pull that from. So don't fret that the latest stack release hasn't been out yet. And then I did see that at least there was some beta testing with what Joe is calling version 1.8, and he had posted last week that they actually formed the first LEB8 mini pool on the test net. Do you know much more about that, or anything you can share with the community?
Unfortunately, that is very much a Joe question, other than I have seen some messages going back and forth between the guys dealing with the kind of creation and yeah, I guess a little bit of early level testing, looking at everything. But while it's not something that impacts us directly, I think it's a great sign that LEBs are possible, change is possible. So I guess we'll be talking about the audits in a bit later on, but that's underway as well. So there is progress being made, and I guess it's good to see some evidence of that, even if, again, we can't see it directly. It has been created, it's out there. I'm guessing if you knew where to look, I don't know if we could post kind of a link to find it on the blockchain, but yeah, making progress slowly but surely.
Yeah, well, since you brought up the audits, maybe we'll just cover that right now. A question that they were asking last week is, did the audits start? Are they underway? Weren't they supposed to schedule to start last week? Or tell us what you know.
Yeah, so actually, I do recall now, I think it was 885U or someone tagged me in Discord, and I don't think I got back to them, so apologies on that, on this very topic. So the audits are underway. This is not kind of like a one-off check, complete, audits are done kind of thing. The audit process is over a month long, right? It runs into early January. So we have a bit of a chat again that I'm kind of involved with, but not really. Well, I'm part of, but not involved with, I guess is the way to put it. With the auditor team, so they are starting to look over all of the work now, and they've kind of been briefed on a few bits and pieces. So it is happening. It is underway.
Oh, excellent. That's good to hear. And yeah, at least from in the past, it's always been they kind of do the audits. It looks like from a post previously by Joe, he was not only suggesting that once he's back and up to par, that not only would he release the new client update, which would be 1.7.1, but he was also going to release a testnet version of 1.8, and it sounded like that would have the deployed contracts on Gorilla and the Prater test network, so we could actually just try them out and play with them. And I think that's going to be real important. Maybe it was a week ago on a chit chat I was on with Kane, and it was kind of late. I think there was only about maybe a half a dozen people in the chit chat, but I didn't really understand the significance that the Atlas brings with the LEB8s, the whole process of converting an existing half 16 mini pool into an LEB8 actually has kind of a number of unique dynamics in the way that it works with the amount of ETH that needs to be in the deposit pool, the ability to convert, and the ability to redeem your coupon, if that's what we're calling it, but your credit. When you convert a half mini and you get a credit to form another, that converts to an LEB8 and you get a credit to, make one more LEB8. There's a lot of rules or dynamics that need to be in play. And it sounded like Kane would be willing, once we're approaching the testnet process, to come on this call and explain it to us like we're five, but really make certain we know the mechanisms of how it works. Have you and Kane had any conversations about setting up one of these community calls to actually talk about the testnet in LEB8, so we can at least go in eyes wide open on the testnet?
So I haven't had a chat with Kane directly on this, but of course it's a great idea, something I think we really should do. Probably an important point to make though is that Dave and Orlangas are working on a quite detailed Medium post. So that is probably the go-to to get some foundational information about Atlas. We were trying to figure out the best time to release it. It probably could be written now, right, and released quite soon. But in terms of building up kind of awareness and hype from I guess you could kind of call it marketing, but that whole communications plan that goes into pushing a new update, especially one as significant as Atlas, probably suggests that the Medium should go out a little bit closer to the actual live mainnet update to get some kind of momentum going, along with some other bits and pieces that we're kind of planning for that date. So in saying that, I know obviously everyone listening, everyone in Discord is very keen to get as much information as soon as possible, both to ensure that they're prepared and just from natural curiosity, wanting to be involved and wanting to know what's going on. And it also, I guess, helps to bridge that gap, right, between I know what it can be like looking in from the outside, not being involved in the day-to-day of what's being built. And yeah, I think to have Kane put a bit of time aside, jump on a call, talk through everything, even if it's kind of in an informal way, it would really help to, I guess, get everyone up to speed in that sense too. So yeah, absolutely. We should do it. I guess it's just a question of when. So yeah, watch this space.
Yeah, I'll just throw my 2 cents in. I think it would be real helpful because it does kind of change the whole, I don't want to say maybe the dynamics, but kind of the the play strategy of a node operator as to when to convert and when to look for the right opportunity to convert so you're most effective on there kind of comes into play. And I think the more we maybe communicate to the rocket pool community, especially the node operators ahead of even the test net, so we know exactly what to test and what to expect. And then I fully agree with you. Then maybe once right before Atlas launches for real on mainnet, that pushing it out to the broader community, especially the potentially new node operators, would be really good. We kind of have to tell them what we're going to tell the node operators, tell them, and then remind everybody what we told them, because it is in my opinion, a significant enough change to how you form a node, or at least redeem a half mini to an LEB8 that you kind of want to know the process and think about it before you jump in.
Yep, absolutely.
Perfect. I guess the one last thing on the node operator section, if we go back to that for a second, is I did see that we had Marceau. Marceau, hi, if you're listening, has joined the smoothing pool. He's now the largest node operator at 174 mini pools that's in the smoothing pool. So I thought that was pretty exciting to see some of the larger node operators also join the smoothing pool.
Yeah, I think from memory, I was hanging around in trading when that update came through. So always good to see a vote of confidence in the protocol from someone like Marceau. And yeah, I guess it's that kind of thing that builds momentum, right? Because the whole question here is, if you are already a whale, are you already smoothing between your pools? If you're larger than the smoothing pool, it's probably less likely to be a positive outcome for you to join. But as more and more, I don't know, what are the smaller sea creatures called? Sharks and fish and so on, build up that smoothing pool, it then becomes, I suppose, logical for larger and larger whales to join. So, this is potentially a trend that could continue, right? You have someone like Marceau join, and then maybe more and more node operators will jump in, and we can push that number up higher than 50% or 50-something percent that it's currently sitting on.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, I fully agree, and it's great to kind of see the more members, just the larger the smoothing pool is, the more consistent its performance will be, the larger the aggregate. So great to see. What about on the rETH side of the house? Anything there that our ethers listening to the call should know, other than, I guess, the deposit pool is still full?
Yeah, it is indeed. And there's been some questions asked as to, how long will it stay full for? What is the premium going to do? And as we all know, you could have the most informed opinion on this, and it could all change tomorrow. That's certainly one thing that the past few weeks have taught us, if we didn't know already. I mean, my take on it, still maintain that there is a very strong demand for rETH. Not only is there active demand for it, so people actively searching out and looking for an opportunity to acquire it, but there's also what we could call latent demand. So it's demand that exists, but is kind of being suppressed by the high price, right? It's people who are saying, I know there's this opportunity now. I'm going to wait until the premium drops down because either my size or they don't want to pay the premium, and they're not actively searching out for an opportunity. But when that premium drops, and if it stays down, these people, these entities will jump in. So in the longer term, it's always kind of been the team's opinion that there won't be a constraint on the rETH demand side. So we're seeing that happen right now. People are moving away from more centralized options. You can see this on Twitter, on Reddit. I think even the odd person jumping into Discord is saying, look, I'm trying to get my ETH, my assets off centralized exchanges, centralized platforms. How do I get rETH? And of course, that's the issue when demand is so high and we are constrained on the supply side. I think it's somewhat unfair to compare rETH against the other LSDs when the other LSDs have kind of unlimited supply. But of course, we're constrained by not only node operators spinning up validators, but the relative inefficiency of the capital that restricts that, right? Having to find someone who's willing to put up another 16 ETH, whereas more centralized operators can just tap their node operators and they'll spin up a new validator, and all the deposits can be dumped into that validator. So they have a much easier job on the supply side. But regardless, there is still this trend out there. It'd be nice to somehow quantify it. Not that easy to do, right? A lot of this information is anecdotal in terms of Twitter posts and Reddit comments, but it is something that I've noticed has picked up. So the trend has been going, in one direction, which is great to see. But of course, when there's so much demand for rETH, we get this premium, and that that raises some questions when it comes to the liquidity, right? So just to briefly recap, the IMC, the primary goal is to ensure that the incentives are managed as per their name. These are the liquidity incentives to ensure there is good liquidity for rETH, right? We want people to be able to buy and sell, to not have to worry about, especially larger positions, impacting the price too much. And the thing about rETH is we can be fairly sure as to what the price will do in terms of the rETH pair, right? It goes up only. The question is by how much. Sure, there's brief periods where that growth increases and then kind of drops back. We've seen that kind of 4% up to maybe 10% spike back down to 4%, but it's maintaining that increasing premium over ETH. It's not like an asset like RPL or other tokens where it can jump up and jump down and it's all over the place. What this means is if we're looking at liquidity for the ETH-rETH pair, you can concentrate it in a relatively narrow band. So when it comes to Uniswap V3 liquidity in particular, the liquidity can be allocated in a tight price band where we think we know rETH is going to trend. Of course, what happens is if there is a premium, the price can move up towards the edge or perhaps off the edge of that provision of liquidity. And as we know, when there's less liquidity, the price for a given transaction size, the price will move more. So if we're setting up in an area of relatively less liquidity, the price tends to stay there. And to move back towards the reference price, or the peg as we sometimes call it, that requires a move into an area of very high liquidity, which is difficult to do. So to sum this all up, the pressure right now in the market is a buy pressure, moving towards an area of reduced liquidity, which means the buyers have more strength in terms of moving the price up and keeping that premium high. When there is a drop off in demand or when people are looking to sell, sure, that price will move back down closer towards the reference price, but because it's moving into liquidity, there has to be a lot more transaction volume to get back to that price. So as a result of all of this, the IMC's had a think. They've correctly realized, in my opinion, that this is not it shouldn't be a provision of liquidity for liquidity's sake, but we have to think what effect is the liquidity or lack thereof, or excessive amounts thereof is happening for the protocol. Is it in our best interest to have a sustained high premium on rETH, or can we say kill two birds with one stone, reduce a little bit in terms of the incentives, maybe conserve some funds for other purposes or for deployment later on where it can have a greater impact, because we know that there's not really so much need for the liquidity right now. People are going to keep buying. Eventually, at some point, the premium will reach a point where it no longer makes sense to buy. Hence, really no need for liquidity, and people can sell all they want. Doesn't seem to be a whole lot of that happening, and they'll be moving into the liquidity, which means we don't really have any concerns there. So yeah, interesting times for the IMC.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, it's always interesting to see the dynamics, but yeah, I agree with you. I think they're making the right calls and keeping some of the powder dry for when the tides shift a little bit here. Maybe it's a good segue then into our governance topics. There's two topics that are on the DAO forum on there. The first one was won by kind of a proposal from Joe to change the way that we're calculating the smoothing pool rewards. And what's interesting about this is Nashua had kind of a mathematical flaw in the way that in that Joe's proposal is kind of averaging the rewards between those that have mini pools that have remained in the smoothing pool the entire period and those that just recently joined the smoothing pool on there. So I don't know, Mav, you want to share anything more about that other than just encouraging people here, I guess, to look at it and comment. I know that there's kind of a workaround of a pseudocode that Patch has proposed with kind of Nashua's help on the math side, and Joe had seen some comment about him saying that, hey, when he's back and feeling better, that he'll start trying to mock up some code to actually follow that. But I don't know if there's more on that subject, Mav.
So I do my best to give a high-level overview. The thread in the DAO governance forum isn't too long. It isn't too complicated. There is, there are a couple of sections of code or that pseudocode in there, but don't be put off by that. It's still relatively easy to get a kind of a good idea of what's going on. And at least from my understanding, I'm sure someone in trading will jump in and correct me if I'm wrong. What this stems from is the fact that there's a node and there's a validator, and they're not equivalent. You could set up a node as people do, and not have any staked ETH, not have any validators, and then later on you could decide to create a validator, or even multiple validators, right? So in terms of the date at which these various, I guess I can call them components, are launched, in the previous or the current setup, this wasn't being accounted for correctly, is my understanding. So what we're attempting to do is to track both the history of nodes and validators. So yeah, what that means is the proposal by Joe to fix this helps to address this problem, but it seems to be some kind of double counting thing, right? Whereby if you create a node and launch a mini pool partway through a rewards period, you'll kind of be hit twice for penalties, whereas you should only be really hit once. But in any case, it does seem to be a relatively well, I mean, Joe's proposal hasn't been implemented, right? So it's great that Noshua was able to put forward this proposal to adjust it, and I'm sure it will be. And yeah, we want to make sure that, which is kind of where this where Joe's proposal came from, right? That everything is as fair as possible, and that there are no kind of ways to either game the system, whether that's something that people purposefully do or just by accident, but at the same time, everyone should get what they're entitled to. So want to make sure that's all squared away.
Yeah, that's a really good way to phrase it. Is just we want to make certain that we've got accurate fairness for those that are in the smoothing pool, given its popularity in there. The other one that put a plug in for is there's a nice rubric that's been posted about the GMC criteria. This is the criteria that the grants and management committee is going to use to evaluate proposals. Either grants, a grant is something that you have an idea that you want to get paid to implement that idea. A bounty is an idea that you want to put forward, but you don't necessarily want to be the contributor or the creator for it. You just want to say, hey, I think we should fund this thing, and people that want to do it can apply for that bounty and be awarded the bounty. And then grants can also be retroactive. Maybe you're already a member of the community and you've worked on something really exciting, and we're encouraging everybody that's done some work or did some contribution in the past to raise that and say, hey, I did this out of the good of my own heart, or just as being a community member here, but I think it should be considered for remuneration by the GMC. So all of those things are going to come open in December here with kind of the reviews in January. But the first thing the GMC needs is some community input about, hey, this is the qualities of those proposals that we should be scoring against or evaluating against. And so there's a post up there, and I think it would be very important to have as many community members take a look at it and see if there's something that either A, we're missing, or B, maybe it's not important to how we should be scoring these submittals. I don't know, Nick, what are your thoughts on it?
I think this is a very important thing to get right, because you could run the GMC based on kind of common sense, right? Everyone jumps on a call and you look at everything, and we kind of all know some of the great work that's been put in. And we could get a rough idea of what kind of compensation is what should be due for that, and we know kind of the level of funds that are available. But thinking back to kind of how the rocket pool team does things, which I think is fair to say should be reflected here, you want to have kind of a long-term perspective of how the GMC will operate going forwards. We want to make sure that there's a strong foundation set up, that the way that it operates is sustainable. And unfortunately, what that does entail in this case is a bit of work in terms of setting up a framework, a bit of admin work, which no one really ever likes to do. But yeah, some time put in now will certainly pay off later on. And I think one of the main reasons is that we really need to make sure that we are consistent, right? Probably one of the most important things when it comes to management, right? Whether that's managing people or teams or projects or whatever, the way that you address one thing, that should be applied evenly. And if it's kind of done to start off with in an ad hoc manner, and you say, oh, this is worth X amount, and what happens when we say run out of funds, or further down the line, something else comes up and people look back and say, well, you allocated this much for X, Y, and Z. It kind of creates a little bit of a precedent, right? Maybe one or two of our resident lawyers might have something to say about that. But, in terms of efficiency, in terms of ensuring there's the best outcome, ensuring that everyone is happy, or at least as happy as possible, I think this adds a ton of value. And it is more than just kind of like writing down common sense, to have something that can be referred back to, and to make sure that the GMC kind of starts out with that long-term goal in mind is really important. And it's clear that, this is the case based on the amount of work that's already been put in. And also some of the commentary I've seen around some of the proposals that have already started filtering through, in terms of really reviewing them with a critical eye, being good stewards of the funds. So yeah, great to see.
Yeah, perfect. One other thing that probably people should know here is, if you've ever noticed in the TUI interface, there's an ability to participate in the pixel placer program here. What is a pixel placer? Well, there's something called the graffiti wall. I guess it was created at the launch of validating as a proof of stake network on Ethereum, and it allows any node operator, any validator, to include some code in the graffiti section of their proposal, and their block proposal, and it then is translated into an image of artwork. And one of the things that Rocket Pool was doing was drawing a Rocket Pool logo on that graffiti wall. Very similar if you've ever played with like co-op painting, how you can kind of draw some advertisement on the graffiti wall. Rocket Pool has done that and is now finished its image on there. I haven't looked at the completed image in there. There's I noticed that Whack Whack Attack didn't include a picture of it on his live stream because there's a phallic looking symbol off to the off to the upper right of that, I believe, if I recall correctly. But anyhow, if you've participated in drawing the Rocket Pool logo on there by enabling that on your validator, you are eligible for a POAP. And so there's a link in trading, just to reach out in trading there and ask for it, where you can then sign a message using using the block chat feature here, and you'll be awarded a POAP. The POAP was designed by Sleety, and I got to say, it looks pretty neat. I claimed mine the other day, and I'm pretty proud of that one.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say as well. It is a good-looking Pope, as per most of Sleety's work. I suppose the question is, what should we draw next? The Rocket Pool logo is, I think, relatively modestly sized, which is probably not a bad idea. It kind of provides an opportunity for other things to be drawn. I think maybe something to do with the smoothing pool is good. It'd be nice to kind of get the word out there. There doesn't seem to be a whole lot of other activity going on. There's something being drawn in the bottom left corner, right? There's some kind of meme that's being created down there. I can't quite remember what that was. And then, yeah, that interesting looking symbol up towards the top. I feel like that was kind of started relatively early on in the piece, right? Because when was it added for Rocket Pool validators? I think it was a relatively kind of last minute inclusion prior to Redstone. But yeah, I guess we have to have a think about what we want to do next. From memory, was it something on Reddit that kind of started this whole thing going? Was it Our Place? I don't know if that was the first or like the most prominent, but that's kind of what I recall is this whole pixel painting thing.
Yeah, I'm hoping folks in trading might be able to post a couple of message on the history of this thing. I know it Genesis was from kind of the ETH staking community. I actually don't know much about it, other than I only participated once it was made available in the TUI with kind of a click of the button. I never quite figured out how to make it work or spent the initiative to make it work. But hey, if there's a button in the TUI, I'll push it to see what it does. And so it was kind of fun to participate on that a little bit and produce it. And maybe this is a way for throwing it out there for the PDAO that makes the money. We can sell our validating space to whatever next client wants us to draw their logo on the graffiti wall. So maybe we should maybe we should put this out there and see if there's some other protocol that wants their corporate logo splattered across it. Right? We could draw it for a fee. Maybe they buy us all some housing for the ETH Denver mountain retreat or something like that, and we'll promise to draw their logo. So,
hey, that's not a bad idea. I guess we'd have to look into. I don't know how it works. Are you allowed to overwrite pixels on the wall, or is it kind of a once it's done, it's done kind of thing? I feel like you said that half joking, but maybe there's something in it.
Yeah, no, maybe there's something in it, right? We'd all love free ski tickets for the event, right? Paid to us, even by Coinbase or whoever, whatever sex wants their logo up in there, or maybe one of the competitors wants their logo, right? But let's move on and talk a little bit about dev team updates. I'll ask you the question that everybody's asking. I know Langers is busy, but I know of some Rocket Pool community members that have been contributing greatly to the GitHub, and they want to get a job in crypto. So do we have any update about the job posting?
So I was trying to think when exactly Langus mentioned this, whether it was on the, no, I don't think it was on the chit chat, was it? Because that was Thanksgiving and no one turned up. So it would have been on last week's community call. So there will be a recording, well, there is a recording of that up on YouTube if you want to go and have a listen and hear it from Langus directly. But essentially, yeah, it did come back to the fact that it most of the time is not actually that easy to hire someone, and kind of a bit of a catch-22, right? That in order to take on board someone to deal with the high workload, you have to increase your workload even further in order to kind of dedicate the time to get someone on board. And yeah, ideally, as has kind of been the history of Rock Report, or at least mostly, hiring someone from within the community is ideal, or at the very least from within the ecosystem, right? It takes long enough, I can say that from experience, to get up to speed on a protocol as relatively complex. Once you know about it, it can seem rather simple. But imagine someone coming from experience in another blockchain ecosystem or outside the industry entirely. It would be quite the challenge, I think. So certainly the preference would be to bring someone on board who's already got as much knowledge as possible. And from the sounds of things, as we're kind of, well, I'm not going to make any promises for Langers, but certainly with a lot of the Atlas work drawing towards the point where most of the building is done and it's moving kind of into the auditing phase, perhaps he'll be freed up towards the end of the year or early next year to dedicate some time to that. But otherwise, we can always get an update from the horse's mouth during the next chit chat or next week's community call.
Yeah, I think that would be great, and certainly would you be willing to at least to commit to make certain that the entire community knows when the job's posted, right? I know a lot of people have a little bit of FOMO that they might miss the announcement or not have the opportunity to share their CV or resume or their interest in the position.
Yeah, definitely something that will be pinged and in the biweekly and etc. mentioned on these calls. So we'll make sure that that's widely known.
All right, excellent. Well, now we're finally onto my favorite topic. I don't know why we put it here at the at the bottom here, but ETH Denver. I thought maybe I'd share just a little bit for everybody that's interested in ETH Denver, and then Mav, maybe you could share a little bit of perspective about what the team is and isn't doing, and kind of lots of questions by the community. But I thought maybe I would start in just saying that ETH Denver is coming up here. It's a little bit later this year. It's going to be at the end of February, beginning of March, and it spans kind of a long window, and I think people are looking at that. You don't have to come for the entire event. The event, it's a little confusing. I agree. It's even confusing for somebody who's been there and is coming back and explaining it to others. But the event is really three parts, and each part is unique, and each part is worth going to either by itself or you can string them together, right? So the first part they call Biddle Week. They pronounce it Biddle. And Biddle Week is it's not quite a hackathon. It's not quite a learning opportunity. It's kind of both together. And this is from February 24th to March 1st. And I'm actually kind of disappointed because I wanted to go to Biddle Week this week, but I don't know if I can. I've got a work conflict that I don't think I can be in both locations at the same time. But you can go there as a brand new person and just do a whole bunch of these community events. And maybe this is something Rocket Pool wants to consider, where you can say, hey, during Biddle Week, we'd like to do a staking workshop, and we'll put together, a 4-hour, 6-hour content. But there's going to be a whole bunch of different protocols there. Maybe you want to learn about ZK proof. Maybe you want to learn about basic Solidity. Maybe you want to know about, something new in Web3. You can just show up. you could join a team, or you can kind of choose your own adventure and attend these kind of side workshops that are all going on. And I found out last year about this. I really thought it was just for hackathon people, and that's not me. I'm not a strong programmer like that. But I learned that anybody can go. In fact, even if you're just a PR person, you could join a team as like the pitch person, or the the kind of coordinator and so forth. So definitely think about it. It's there, and I was surprised they're offering $3 million in bounties this year, which is just an absurd number to me. I mean, I was just surprised at how large it was to participate in it. But then, okay, so that's the one event, right? That's kind of the pre-event, and there's going to be a whole bunch of different side meetings or side conferences that you can just kind of go to as well, that are going to be co-located there at ETH Denver, that you'll start to see them announce as it gets closer, right? So like Gitcoin does its Schlelling point usually the day before. It could be things where like Flashbots does a conference on MEV extraction, or how to produce builders or block relays and so forth. So there's going to be a lot going on that kind of pre-week. Then there's what I'll call the main event, and the main event happens March 2nd. That's a Thursday through March 5th. That's a Sunday. And this is where the real big event is going to be. This is where the vendor booths will be. This is where the large crowds will be. This is where the speakers or the presentations will be, the keynotes and so forth. And they're calling that the Innovation Festival. It's at a new venue. It's going to be different this year, we're told. We'll have to see what it is. And then at the same time as that Innovation Festival, then any of the teams that want to compete in the hackathon, they'll also be presenting and working on at the same time. So there'll be kind of an overlap. And so that's called the Biddlethon. That's kind of what their hackathon is, the Biddlethon. And it's also the same dates, right? So you'll be there for the main event, or you'll also be there for the competition. And then afterwards, so the parties will all end Sunday night. And then afterwards, that week that follows, the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or however long you want, there's something called the Mountain Retreat. It's maybe kind of quasi-sponsored by ETH Denver. They're at least what they're doing is making it known, making it available. There's a way to reserve buses up the hill, so you can get rides up the hill to Breckenridge and the surrounding resorts. But we're also talking in the Rocket Pool community about soliciting interest. I know last year there were a number of Rocket Pool folks that went up to the mountain, enjoyed some skiing and some cabin lodging together. It was just a great way to decompress afterwards. Last year I did the main event and was just absolutely amazed by it, and very excited to look at it. So basically 3 events, but the reason we're kind of pushing it is the most important thing, if any of this sounded interesting to you, the most important thing right now is to just get an application in. And there were some kind of questions about that. We'll chat a little bit, but I wanted to kind of pass it over to Mav here, who maybe is going to talk a little bit more about Rocket Pool's involvement and what you can share with the community here that really wants to go, but more importantly wants to go as part of the Rocket Pool community. So Mav, what do you know?
So I do have a little bit to share. And I think it's been a couple of these calls where I've mentioned the ETH Denver channel kind of sitting there a little bit abandoned. But yeah, exciting update. So the documentation for sponsorship has been received by us, and we've looked through it. We're okay with everything in there, and we're about ready to sign. So that will make everything official. We are going to have a booth during the main event. The team will fly in, all of us, essentially centered on that main event. So we will probably show up a day or two before, just to kind of get everything in order, get set up, get over the jet lag. That's a day or two before the main event starts, so kind of in Feb. And yeah, the 5 of us from Down Under will be all on the same flight. Looks like probably be United. So hopefully they've got some pretty safe pilots, but at the very least, Joe will be flying in, of course, separately in case anything happens. So yes, we've been talking about this for a while. I've been wanting to kind of hold off making too much noise about it until we do have a contract that is signed. It is likely to be signed today. We're just waiting to hear back from Ethereum on one minor point, which shouldn't be an issue. So essentially, we're on the home stretch in terms of locking in Rocket Pool's presence there. One point worth noting is I think there might be a spy or an information leak. I'm not quite sure what's going on, but with regards to the accommodation, because I know there have been a few questions about that, and Noshua actually had it quite right. So first of all, what has to happen is we need to make a hotel booking on testnet on Gorelli, and then 2 weeks later we can make our mainnet hotel booking. So that's why it's taken quite a while. But yeah, joking aside, I think it's another one of these things that, well, we know we're going to be there, so we just have to get around to doing it. I've been keeping an eye on the hotel prices. It doesn't seem to be too bad in terms of availability. We're likely to stay somewhere central in one of the hotels there. So in terms of the community wanting to be nearby, I guess anywhere kind of central would be a good idea, but we're likely to host the event or events that are kind of more community focused, off-site, probably around the ETH Denver venue itself. So to a certain extent, it doesn't really matter where you stay, right? We're all going to be spending essentially all of the time either on site or nearby. So yeah, I would say don't wait for us. Just go ahead and grab the accommodation you prefer, and we'll see you all in Denver. Once this contract is locked in, we want to start doing some kind of more official communication, right? So getting the word out. Rocket Pool is a sponsor at ETH Denver, kind of reminding people in the community who perhaps might want to come. Maybe they're not listening on these calls. Maybe they're a little bit confused about how everything works as to A, how to attend the event itself, and B, how to participate in Rocket Pool related activities, whether that's these event or events or in kind of more of a volunteer role. One other related point to that is yesterday Dave has started looking at merch, getting a couple of pieces made up so we can kind of like test and check the product before we commit to a full order. But yeah, that's pretty much the latest from the Rocketwood side on ETH Denver. At some point there will be an opportunity to kind of put your name down to grab a slot at the booth if that's something that you'd be interested in doing. I know there has been kind of an unofficial poll sent out around more focused on sorting out accommodation and then the mountain retreat side of things that did have in their reference to volunteering. So apologies, it may be the case that you have to kind of register your interests twice, or yeah, at the very least, we'll kind of have a roster that people will have to kind of give an idea of when they're available and what they can commit. In terms of that mountain retreat, I don't think we've decided within the team exactly who is staying on. I know it won't be everyone. Probably a couple will stay on. It's looking like at this stage, and maybe if everyone makes enough noise in trading, Langers will give me a bit of time off and I can hang around and grab a bit of skiing. I don't know if it makes sense to bring my skis over. That seems like a hassle. I guess they'll have high facilities there, but yeah, I expect the main event to be pretty full on, at least for the team. As you said, Ken, looking at the amount of money on the table and that number of 250 or so companies and projects on the wait list to pay money to be a sponsor, of which we have now cleared that wait list. But yeah, you would kind of not think there is a raging bear market going on. So yeah, said that a few times, but great to see the Ethereum ecosystem remaining strong. And we're looking forward to putting on a bit of a show when it comes to the amount of orange in Denver in March.
Yeah, oh boy, you're going to start it now if the merch is orange, right? I could just see the arguments now in trading on that. So yeah, lots to digest there. Let me see if I got it right. Joe's going to be the designated survivor, so he's the one person taking a different flight than the team, which is all in the same airplane. So that's good to know. It's great to hear the contract's going to be signed pretty soon, and yeah, I think the ideal of just not so much that we could wrench the team, but if we knew the preferred hotel area, we can kind of set up a rocket pool camp around it. But I fully agree that it's going to be so dispersed over the entire Denver metropolitan area that it doesn't really matter where you stay. Just choose some accommodation that works for your budget. And if it's like last year, I think I really only spent time in my hotel just for shut eye. And as soon as I woke up, I was out the door and back at the event. It's not really something that you spend time in the hotel area. It's all the events and the surrounding community that's so great. But I absolutely agree, Mav. It'd be great to have you up there on the mountain afterwards. I think as community manager, it's part of your job duties, and maybe others in trading will let lingers know that we demand that some of the team go up to the mountain afterwards, so we can enjoy a beer together and enjoy the mountain that's up there. It's definitely the highlight of the Denver area. I did see some confusion about a lot of questions about joining the Spork DAO. I'm probably not the best person to explain it, but at least share some of my perspective. I've posted a little bit in the Spork DAO Discord to kind of get more of that, and so here's kind of my understanding of it. And unfortunately, it's such a confusing registration process they have. I know that they had to switch vendors for that the registration process at the last moment. That's why they were delayed. But when you fill out the application, right? So to get a ticket, it's not like you buy a ticket. It's you fill out an application, right? And they do ask for some personal identity information. And you can, they make it pretty clear you could remain completely anonymous. The only thing that they really require is that you use your real name at one point. And it sounds like to get into the facility, you'll have to show some government issued ID with that real name on there. And they're doing that just because they have an insurance contract and a kind of a release of liability. So they have to make certain that, like myself, Ken Smith is really the one that signed it and got into the building for it. But you can remain completely anonymous. You don't have to give your Twitter handle. You don't have to give your Ethereum account. You can say no to all of those. It might be worth it to give a burner wallet because they do give airdrops of some some Spork token, which is kind of their community token in there. But you can decide if it's not worth chasing that airdrop in there. And then you get to a point that says, will you become a member of their DAO or not? And if you say no, then they say, well, you gotta pay some money for the ticket. But most people, I would say, nearly 99% of the people just opt into their DAO. It's one of the largest community-run DAOs out there. You can look at their kind of contractees in there, but it's basically, look, if you're willing to contribute something to the community, whether it's just talking to somebody about Ethereum or mentioning something or participating or giving something to ETH Denver while you're there, whether it's just being in line or explaining something about Rocket Pool, then you absolutely qualify for their DAO. You can quit the DAO immediately the day after. But my recommendation to everybody is, certainly join the DAO. It's well respected, and you can quit immediately afterwards, but you might find that you like it. It's kind of a unique community. And the benefits of joining their Spork DAO is you get the ticket for free. So And once you're at ETH Denver, they had plenty of food. They gave you free cryptocurrency to use at food trucks. So you were kind of well taken care of. It was a different vibe and ethos. But if you can just get yourself there, you can pretty much minimize your expenses by going to all the sponsored events and eating the food and treats and snacks from ETH Denver. So it's definitely worth going to. Don't let that be a deterrent for it. But I'll post in trading afterwards a couple of links from the show notes here that's out there. But I know we're reaching the end of the call here, and so Mav, I know you've got kind of a hard stop, but there is going to be one last, I guess, AMA this week by Bloxroute. Is that on for this week?
Oh, yeah, it is indeed. And I was just thinking that it's coming up to the hour, and I'm sure it's fine if I go a couple of minutes over. But again, another case of me thinking, oh, Joe's not on. It's not necessarily been the busiest of weeks. We can probably get this wrapped up in 40 minutes, and here we are. We'd probably be still talking in half an hour's time. I think for me, at least, it's having, once in a generation events happening every day for a period of a week or so now seems that nothing's happening. Whereas it's kind of just a bit of a mean reversion, right, in terms of the amount of announcements and amount of news and kind of topics to talk about. But yeah, so there are a few final points to get through before we end the call. And one of them is, yes, so Langers and the Bloxroute team, I think it's one of their senior relay devs who's going to host the call. Anyway, there is an AMA in, I think, 20 or just over 24 hours or so. Head to the Discord, the event section that has the details and the link to the Twitter space, the time in your local time zone, so you can go along. If you have any questions, you can always drop them in the comments of the Twitter space tweet and they'll be picked up. But yeah, do show up to that. I will actually be in Australia as well. I'm jumping on a flight later today to go over and meet the guys. I think they just wanted to make sure that I actually exist and I'm not just an AI with a funny accent. So you get to see them in person. And then Friday we usually have a chit chat. I think that will still be on. I'll double check and add it into the events. Although I guess I don't know. Maybe it depends how many beers we have tonight or tomorrow night. But yeah, seeing as that last week was Thanksgiving, it'd be probably a good idea to jump on a call with everyone and have a bit of a chat. What else do we have? Oh yeah, I guess one final point is to loop back to Denver and the topic of hotels. So if for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe you've got family that you want to stay with and they're kind of a bit out of town, or maybe you are looking for cheaper accommodation and it's in a different part of the city, don't feel that you're kind of missing out on anything. We'll make sure that any kind of official rocket pool event is communicated well in advance in terms of when and where. As much as possible, we'll try and keep everything located to the venue because we know that's where people will be. So I think it's cool that some of the community is keen to either be in the same hotel or the same area. But yeah, please don't feel that you'll be missing out if you're kind of staying a little bit further out of the city. When we do get around to booking as a team, we will be probably fairly central. But yeah, if there's better options that suit you in a different part of the city, that won't be a problem. And with that, it is now 9 o'clock here in New Zealand. So I don't know if there are any questions, but we can probably end the call. And yeah, to add, thanks for going through the ETH Denver details, Ken. I know even for me it was a little bit confusing. As far as I'm aware, I don't have to go through that process being part of the kind of team having sponsored the event, but good to get that cleared up. And I think we will either copy in your bullet points that you've dropped in trading, or put a link to it in an announcement or the next biweekly to make sure everyone knows how it all works.
Yeah, I'll definitely put a plug in that if you're thinking of doing it, if you think it would be neat to kind of meet up with the Rocket Pool community, do any of these events, or just even meet other Ethereans in the space, I highly recommend ETH Denver. The thing I would say, even if you're just on the fence right now, is take the few seconds. I think you could do it probably in less than 4 minutes. Fill out the application. Um, even if you don't know if you're going to show up or not, just fill it out, because even at the larger venue, I'm guessing that they will probably max out. And so just get your application in, the sooner the better. That way, you've at least got a spot. And then as things kind of flush out with the team and logistics, and you're willing to come help out, you'll have a ticket. And the thing I think that is real important is that, one, getting a booth out there and showing us out to the larger community is really going to help Rocket Pool grow. And my hope and vision is that there'll be enough volunteers to work the booth that the dev team can actually get out and meet the other protocols, work on kind of client development or protocol integrations. Maybe some of the devs can actually get out and hear some of the talks to see where the Ethereum protocol is going to go, instead of being kind of always tied or bound to the booth. I think that's something that many in the community here probably know as much as as many of the team members do about Rocket Pool, and can certainly represent Rocket Pool as well, if not better than the dev team. So definitely consider it if you're thinking about it. And with that, I know, Matt, we've held you over a little bit, but maybe let's call it to the end of today's community call. Certainly looking forward to discussions back on trading. And I apologize if there were questions today. Believe it or not, we just had so much content that we didn't get to questions. But definitely next time we'll carve out a little bit more time to make certain others can raise questions, concerns, or any other topics, and make it much more of a community call.
Sounds like a plan. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, everyone listening in. And as usual, you can find a recording on YouTube later today.
All right. Talk to you guys all later. Bye.
See ya.